spotlight for everyone. Over to you, Anthony.
Thank you. Welcome everybody, and those who are yet to join. So I've got three topics that I'm going to try and cover this morning. We've got some new kits out, and we've got some recurring questions about Loco Box. So I'm going to try and cover those and the reasons why things work. And I've got a bit of assembly to do if we run out of things to talk about. So let's have a start with new kits and things. Conscious, of course, that people might be here that haven't been to shows, haven't seen things, haven't seen anything we've had new since last virtual show. Not been a great deal, but there's been things. So we've got a wagon turntable, which is there. So it's 9 pieces. A little picture on the left side there of a real one, or 2 or 3 in a row there. So that's available. That's $6.50. It's in 1.5 millimeter plywood. Surprisingly popular. It was something a customer asked us for, and curiously, interestingly, good for business, people are tending to buy multiples of them, which is nice. I'm looking forward to seeing some nice layouts of those when they're done. I guess it's a sort of a long thin layout sort of thing, because it's a quayside or a yard or something like that, and just gives you the opportunity of putting a warehouse down the back with some of these in front of it. And I guess they could be made to move, not intended to move, but you could put motor under them, motorize them. That might be quite interesting operationally. Another new thing we've got, which I'm quite excited about, customer asked us at Stafford if we could make a model of a ballast brake van, which is not a shark. It's one of these. Yeah. LNER diagram. It appears in 1 or 2 books, but it's quite boxy. It's quite a easy kit to do, and quite interesting to make as well. So that's a new kit we've got, and I've got one here that's made up. The bodywork is something that we've got the kit for. What I've done is I've tried to take it forward. When we've brought out coaches, especially the 6 wheels ones, the horse boxes behind me there, people have said, what about a chassis, things like that. And to help modelers, we've brought out a chassis, we've done some moldings for it, and for the clerestory coaches as well here, we've got molding set for those. But when I'd done the body for the ballast brake van, I looked at what else was required, and if customers want us to put a chassis thing together, we can do. But what I found is I've built the chassis from bits that were in the box. You know, your spares box, your bits and pieces box. So that's the way that I've done it, and what I've done, I'm going to include in the instructions. Not done any instructions for it yet, but I've done a proof of concept, and I'm going to just use a camera, the other camera that I've got, the detail camera, just to give you a little tour around there, and let you see what's included in the kit.
Matt, can I ask you a question, Anthony? I have to say I'm not really an expert in building coaches at all. And the thing that always trips me up is the roof, making the roof. How do you do that in wood?
Well, we supply with each order, or for each modeler, we supply a little jig or big jig that looks like that. Okay, so it's like the clang clang clang, the negative of the roof, if you like. Which one's this for? Doesn't say. Prototype, must be that one. Right. So when you make the roof, and it's the same for the ballast brake as well, there's a frame inside the roof.
Oh.
Yeah, with like sort of formers. We part cut the roof panel, so it's cut on that side in this case, not on that side. Doesn't matter which way round you put it. So on the ballast brake, it's cut on the outside.
Right.
Yeah, doesn't matter which way you put it round. And then put the frame together, put the jig together, template, whatever you want to call it, and then glue the frame and place it into the jig with some baked bean cans or something like that on top.
Fantastic. Sorry for taking you down that rabbit hole.
No, it's fine.
Please carry on.
It's absolutely fine, because even though we've part cut through it, and you can probably see, if I get the, you can see that the cut lines have almost come through. That piece of plywood is of such quality that it's still got a lot of energy. It still wants to be flat. So you really do need to put it into something that's going to consistently form the shape while the glue goes off.
Right.
Once glue's gone off, it's fine, it's happy, and for the don't know where that went. Oh yeah. For the clerestory coaches, it's the same principle. The form is just a little bit more contrived in shape and wildlife.
Very clever. You get 3 spiders then.
Yeah. That'll teach me, won't it? Right. Okay. Is that okay?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
That's fine. That's fine. So I think we're just going to switch cameras, won't we, and have a look at the.
Just one thing, Anthony.
Yeah.
What glue would you recommend for actually gluing your kits together?
So what I use is that one. Superfatic. When we started doing things, kits, all sorts, I trialed about 5 or 6 different glues, all different sorts of different compositions, and I just found that was best. I guess I'm a bit of an impatient modeler, so I like to move on, and it's quite quick. Yeah. It's different to something like a wood glue, like a PVA. PVA will dry rock hard, but the Superfatic will stay a little bit rubbery. So the important thing when you're doing the coaches is that it's got a quick grab. Nigel commented this morning he thought it was a bit too fast, but I guess that's probably judged by my confidence in using it, because I've done quite a few. Yeah, if it's your first kit and you're not going to be as confident as putting the glue on, but I'll just sort of tend to whiz up and down it and have the confidence to do it. If you're not as quick or as confident, Nigel commented about it going off. I don't find it's a problem. I do find, as Nigel said, it can start to go off at where you started it when you get to the end of a long run. But just refresh it. And that works quite well. Not necessarily putting lots more on, but just go over it again and re-wet it. And it works fine. It works fine. The point about it being rubbery as well is, although it's grabbing quickly and it allows you to move quickly and be accurate in your building, if you come back to it after a couple of days and you think, I'm not happy with that, you can put a knife through it and it's still a bit rubbery, and it will let you part the components. And you can clean them up and you can start again. So there's good and there's good. I don't know. It might not be your personal preference, but it works for me. So
No, that's fine. Nigel has qualified it by saying only fast when attaching the beading.
yeah, because the beading's quite intricate to glue. Yeah, you've got a fairly big piece that is a lattice of thin sections. So yeah.
Anyway, show us your kit. Back to your kit.
It's fine. We're having a good chat. So right. So what I was going to do with this ballast brake van was switch camera and then give you a little tour, because it's full of furniture that comes in the kit, but because I haven't put any paint on it yet, the furniture's not fixed down. So I'll give you a tour and then I'll start waving it around, and then the furniture will fall over and fall out and stuff like that. Okay, so it's working now. What? There we go. Right. So you saw the picture. Do you remember the picture? Do you remember the picture? Shall I show you the picture again?
Show us the picture again.
Yeah, we had a bit of a distraction, didn't we? So that's the photograph. One of the photographs the customer gave me at Stafford.
Just to refresh everybody's memory, is it which region's it from?
It's an LNER diagram.
Right. Okay.
LNER diagram 203, I think. But it was. I think they were made from 1948. So although it's LNER diagram, it was sort of straight into BR ownership. And I don't know how many people use it, but if you go on the, it's gone. Whichever website has all the wagon pictures on it. Just give me a moment. Hang on. No, never mind. It'll come back to me. This is sort of like a dark engineer's green with light green doors, but there are pictures on the David Bartlett, Paul Bartlett website, with LNER grey, with bauxite, with dark green and yellow on. So lots of different liveries through 40 odd years of service with departmental. So that's one photo. That was another photo. Okay. And cover the keyboard up. No, no. There we go. Right. So that's the kit. Now I'm intending the kit just to be the wooden parts. And it comes with the furniture inside. So you've got the duckets for the guard there. There's two sections in the van. There's the there, right? There's the guard section and there's a workman section here. It's got 2 tables in it, benches all the way around. There should be a cooking stove in this one and a guard's stove in this one. I've asked the customer if he can get, well, the customer's been promised some photographs. So if I can get some photographs, I'll have some 3D stoves made for it. As I said before, the kit is just intended to be the body kit with the roof, which is made in the same way as we were just chatting about with the former inside. And of course, the kit will come with a template. Let's see if I can put that back on there. And some other bits and pieces as well. So what I've done is, as part of putting it together, I've created a little template, which is a similar sort of thing to what Slaters do with theirs, isn't it? Some handrail formers there to help you make the handrails. I always struggle with handrails, and they're marked along the side of the kit as well. So I'm just intending to do a wooden body kit with the pieces inside it. The roof and the former and the template there. What I've done is I've sort of developed this one a little bit further. So just as a proof of concept, really, to see, it occurred to me when I was looking at what to do, that there were so many pieces going to come out of my bits box to complete it, that I thought I'd see how far I could take it with bits out of the bit box, and it's more or less complete. I just need to put some handrails in there and some coupling hooks, and some footsteps in the end, 2 on this end, and there's extra ones to go on that end, and that's just about it, you know. So I'm sort of 2 minds that I maybe don't need to think too much about doing a chassis for this one. So you've seen the furniture inside, so we'll just tip all that bundle of stuff out. Will or will not come out. So what I've done for the chassis on this, I've got a pair of axles out of the spares box. One's a rocking axle, which I thought was a good idea because it's a longer wheelbase. And the chassis I've made up as sort of one piece, which is detachable at the moment, because I was trying to figure out how it all would go together. And really all it is some pieces of 6x2 channel for the main frame, some 5x2, is it 5x2 or 6x2, for the step boards, 5x2, and a bit of 2x2 channel for the bracing. So that's it, really.
So there's soldering involved then when you're making this?
Yeah, I mean, what I've done there is I've just cut the pieces out and soldered them together. Yeah, and that whole structure will, you know, is demountable and will get painted separately. But so what I would normally do if somebody asked me to do a kit for the body, which the customer did do, is just do that. But I just thought, well, okay, it's proof of concept. I'll see how far I can take it with bits out of the bits box. So that's sort of what I did, which was good to do, because even fairly late on, studying photos to put the chassis together, I discovered there tiny little alterations to the handrail holes and things like that I can make to make the kit more accurate. The one thing that customer was keen to point out to me was that there was a hatch at this end, and he also gave me a diagram which that way, if you can see this one, it says hatch on it, but in the photographs it looked very dark. You probably won't see that. Inside it looked like a door. Now it's probably a blocked off door which has caused somebody to put hatch, and one of the articles I found about it in LNER wagons or something like that said interconnecting door. So it obviously was a door when it was built and made into a hatch or blocked off later. And 30, 40 of these were built, and they were probably modified over time in different ways by different departments and stuff like that, because they ended up being fairly widespread as departmental vans. So that's a new kit. Quite excited about that. You know, as with anything, you know, it's made out of wood. We know what to do with wood. We're going to saw out and chop it about. You might not like the furniture. You might want to configure it differently. But as a different item, something I've never seen a kit for, even hinted about, it's just different. It's quite easy to make as a kit. The sides are laminated, so we've got an external piece and internal pieces. Same as the coaches, the partitions keyed into the floor, but there are two floors in it as well, so you've got plenty of thickness there to screw the in this case anyway, the ones I chose to use, you've got plenty of thickness for screwing these into the floor, and anything else as well, because that needs fixing to the floor as well in some way. The other thing that might evolve in the future, we might end up doing some etched duckets, but these are plywood duckets, and as part of the proof of concept, I tried to figure out what the best thing to do was. So in the kit, you're going to get two, or I might even include four, because it's going to be quite a tricky thing to do. Two pieces like this, which are marked with the joint lines. I don't think you ought to try to fold it, because you need to put V's in or something like that, and they're very, very delicate around the windows in the duckets. But one of the things I tried to do was I used that as a template, and I cut out some nickel silver ones, because I just happened to have some nickel silver in the bits box. I discovered that the Slater's ones for the LNER brake van and the LMS brake van are not really the right shape. So this one's too narrow, that one's too shallow, not high enough. So they sort of were a good idea, but went by the board. The nickel silver one sort of folded up like that, which is okay. And I made a plasticard one as well from the template. Where it goes into, yeah. So that's what'll come in the kit, and you can try and make it up, and it does make up quite nicely. I mean, I think that's quite presentable. Or you can use that as a template for making a plasticard ones, or metal ones, brass ones, nickel silver. the reason why I thought probably metal or plastic would be better than having a wood one in here is that the duckets are steel and it's not metal, it's wood. So just trying to be a bit of a purist, really, but different ways you could do it if you wanted to.
Yeah, Nigel's just commented here, that on the real thing. In fact, if you look on the in the chat pane, you'll see that he's put links to the website that you were on about earlier about wagons, and he's commented that the duckets are metal, so maybe it would be worth the effort to cut them out in nickel silver as you've done, so
yeah, or brass or whatever. You've got a template there with the fold lines.
Yeah, you've got very useful
on it.
Yeah. Can I just say to everybody as well, people that have just joined, if you want to join in the chat, feel free to type a message in the chat box on the right hand side of the screen, which you can access by hovering your cursor over the bottom of the screen and clicking on the chat function, because one of the hosts is watching the chat box, and we will ask you questions to Anthony, or maybe even get you to unmute yourself and ask them yourselves. Anyway, back to you, Anthony.
Yeah, happy with that. Happy with that. Yeah, and there's lots of different ways you could do it. We've on the chassis, I put some brass strapping on there, and that is on the photos. There's two different thicknesses, and what I just chose to do was to use these to hold the body in place on the chassis, but on the top I've put some plastic card strapping with some riveting on there. So if you chose to do the chassis a different way, you could use the plastic card on the bottom as well. Yeah, so that's the kit as it is. Anybody got any questions about that? Anybody want to place any orders? Anybody? No, I'm only kidding.
Are you including the drawing for the chassis in the kit?
I'm quite happy to share the drawing. The drawing is from a book. The customer copied it out of a book. So I guess there's a where are we on that camera now, aren't we? The customer copied it out of a book, so I guess there's a copyright on it somewhere. But I'm happy to share the drawing with customers. I don't know which book it's out of. I should find out, because it's not in any of the books I've got. I found this in 2-3 different books, but it's not in those books, so it must be in a different one somewhere. Yeah, but I'm quite happy to share it on a personal basis.
Okay, fine, thanks.
Because it is quite important. I mean, it's starting to look a bit grubby now, because I've been using it as I've been sort of folding it and using it as a template to put the supports on for the footboards and stuff like that. So it is quite an important thing to have. Yeah. Okay. We talked. I don't know as it was in the pre-session or not, Nick. We talked earlier on about things that we do in Poppies being a sort of a side shoot of things that I needed for me as a modeler. And I know other ones exist of these, so I'm not sort of promoting it as a new thing. But to help me to get the spacing right for the axles, I knocked up a quick little jig for axle spacing for wagons and things like that. Customers asked in the past, do you do one of these? Oh, I thought it was you, and stuff like that. So I know there's a sort of a bit of a demand out there. I've seen them in 4mm. I don't know if anybody does a 7mm one or not, but I can't claim originality on that. But I just thought it was good for me to know that 16-foot wheelbase. Okay, I can put that in. I can put that in there. I can put that in there, and I can line the stuff up. It doesn't fit on very well now. I've got the brake gear in, but yeah. So that's another. It's just I need to get back to modeling, Nick, and just do some more inspirational stuff, because it's just little tools like this that help you just put things together, isn't it? You know, jigs and stuff like that.
We all like a jig.
Now then, there is a right way and a wrong way around. It's that way around, because you've got to give the guard some steps to get into the. Has anybody got any other questions about this? Oh, good. Okay. I don't know if that's good or bad. Never mind.
Nothing appearing in the chat
No.
box. If anybody wants to ask, type in the chat box.
That's good. I'll just quickly arrange the furniture while I'm. And then it's set up for this afternoon. Oh, that's no ends on it, so that's the one that goes across the end there. That one goes in there. That one goes in there. Table in the middle. It's funny. I don't know. Other people have thought about kits or you know, manufacturing things or whatever, making models, even making models, you know, and somebody comes up afterwards after you finished it and says, oh, it shouldn't be like that, it should be like this. Lot, no, this is the way it should be. I tried to find out what the tables were like, and we sort of said, oh, I think it's a bit of a guesstimate, whatever else. So these have sort of turned out as a sort of what I imagined a fairly utilitarian kitchen table would look like. Okay, it's sort of 5 foot by 2 foot. It's 30 inches off the. It works as a table. It would work in your kitchen. So
it looks like something from IKEA. I've just had a question here from Nigel asking if he could have one of your jigs.
Which one? That one?
Yeah.
Oh, perfect. Thank you. Yeah. So you know, we went through the no idea at all, blah 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 blah. So I don't know if anybody knows or not. Malcolm from M&M Models First Class Kits. He used to work on the railway. And I was talking to him one day about doing etches for the duckets, and I said to him, "Any idea what a table would be like?" And he said the before mica, wipe down, clean, hygiene. What, in 1948? Well, maybe not then, but you know, so on and so forth. So we sort of decided that. As far as Malcolm's concerned, this sort of traveling van would just have a utility table in it like this one, but it would full mica on the top. It would be, you know, scrubbed down, kept clean, and it won't be bolted down. They'd maybe sort of shuffle them both together or whatever else. So then the customer came back to me and said, "Oh no, they've come back and they've said, yeah, it's definitely bolted down." So you know, we're into this scene now of, you know, they were in service for 40-50 years, and every one of them's had a different journey, everyone's had a different life. So I guess you could make it in the way that you want to make it. If you could even do a blue Peter and put some sticky back plastic on it, and it would fall like, wouldn't it? There you go. Right, so that's that, and that's that. That's the jig for the handrails and stuff like that. So, you know, what we were saying earlier on, I don't release a kit until I know I can put it together pretty easily. So, you know, the handrail thing that we looked at there, it'll be tested. We make sure that the handrails that I make with this will go on the van and stuff like that. I think it's important that you, as modelers, get the experience you expect to have, having seen me do whatever I'm doing with these, you know. So we had some more subjects to talk about. Builder's box again. So again, because we talked about it last time, Nick was, Nick's a loco builder, so we talked about loco box, and we came up with a sort of a fairly eureka moment for me, in as I know it works because I've done it, but I didn't really, it was just something, the way Nick said about how he's used loco box, that it dawned on me one of the reasons why it works, because if you're building a solid chassis, it's fine. That's no issue at all. It's obvious and it's simple. But if you're building it with suspension or with compensation, is it suitable for that? And I know it is, because I've built locos with them before, and they've got suspension and beams and all that sort of wiggly dangly stuff. But just something that Nick said one of the times we had a session. So it does work for suspension and beams, and the logical output of it is that when you're putting it together, when you're lining it up, when you're soldering it in place, the one key thing to make sure is that the top of the frames line up with the top of the box. Yeah. And then the loco is going to sit level on the track. Now, just to help the conversation today, I've knocked this chassis up this week. It was a solid chassis. I've put some beams in it. You can probably see the beams there, and I've put a rod with a tube across the center of the loco, just to be able to demonstrate to you that level is level on top, is level with the top of the box, and hopefully that helps to answer any anxiety, fears, questions about using compensation and the horn blocks and all that sort of thing. It's just a case of making it up and putting it in the box so that the top of the chassis is level with the top of the box.
Yeah, when I first saw you using one of those loco boxes, one of the things that occurred to me straight away was that it'd be a really good way of holding the axles in the same plane, and if you then move the chassis so that the top of the frame, as you've just been emphasizing, to parallel with the top of the box, then you can use the rods then with some confidence on the end of the jury axles that you provide with the loco box. You can position the horn guides very accurately then in the chassis, because everything's held in the same plane. And I've used it several times actually, the box that I got from you, and it works really well. I have to say, it's just a very simple aid, to save a lot of measuring before you go in there with your soldering iron to solder all the axle boxes in place, and it was very good. I've used it quite a lot. And it was, what made me think of it was that, what's his name in Gainsborough does a Hobby Holidays jig for aligning chassis, which does basically exactly what your wooden box there does, and obviously yours is a fraction of the cost. That was the thing that struck me when I first saw you building a loco in it. It was just an unexpected use of something that you designed to do something else in, really, wasn't it?
Right. Well, yeah, and it gives you a lot of confidence that you're putting together the chassis in a way that it should go together and it's going to work smoothly.
Correct.
But also, I mean, I'm sat down here now. I've had the privilege to be able to convert this space into a workshop for me, and I've sat down and I'm getting used to sitting down modeling. But what I've done in the past is I've always stood up at a workbench that was at, a similar height, and you very quickly get into the place where you're waving stuff around in the air while you're trying to solder it together and stuff like that. So this has become an extra pair of hands for me as well while I've been doing it. I mean, for those that haven't seen it before, here's Blue Peter again. This is one that I prepared earlier, but it's still, the chassis is still sat in the box. But I've used it to build a foot plate, which I shall be doing with the other one. Because it's a flat foot plate, it'll fit on that way as well as that way. So I've used it on there to put the buffer beams and the valances on, and the steps and all that sort of stuff. And then the right way up, using it to hold the loco while I move around it and while I put extra stuff on and build a superstructure. And it's just extra pair of hands to help you hold it.
Yeah, Nigel's just put in the chat box as well that he's got one and he uses it and finds it really, really, really helpful. He builds all of his chassis, he says, in one of your boxes now, and so has somebody else, Steve Smith. And everybody likes them because they hold everything nice and straight and square while you're soldering, and I'd agree with that.
Yeah,
I'd agree with that. There are much, much, much more expensive alternatives on the market, but this I found to be very good. You have to take a bit of care to build the box in the first place, don't you, to make sure that it itself is square. But my experience was that it was actually quite straightforward to glue together. And you know what? If I can do it, because I'm absolutely rubbish with wood, absolutely rubbish. If I can do it, anybody can. I turned it upside down and put beans on it while the glue was drying. Turned it upside down on a flat surface.
Okay. To make sure that the tops were level.
Yes, to make sure that your box is square. I mean, it's next to impossible not to make it square because of the way that you make it.
Yeah, the castellations on it. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I would sort of say, okay, try and you're there, aren't you? Try and line it up like that and make sure that the axles are, in a line. But as you've just pointed out, well, no, I mean, if their axles are in a line, then it's logical the top should be in a line because they're parallel to the edge. But it's getting them in line that's, well, I don't know which customers have said they've got one, but if you've been one of the people that have asked about them at a show, I've sort of said, well, glue them together with some PVA so it's slow setting, make sure it's square, go and get a cup of tea, come back, make sure it's still square.
Nigel also pointed out the tray part of the box catches a lot of the parts that drop off as well.
Do you know what, Chris? I proved that this week because I was building that, and bits dropped off, and they're caught in the box.
No more scrambling around on the floor trying to find those screws that fall off. That kind of thing drives you potty, doesn't it? Looking for bloody parts. Must waste a significant part of my modelling time looking for bits on the floor.
I thought that was just me.
No, it really isn't.
Especially
when they ping off as well and they go woo, over to the other side.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I've got a little bit of modification. I've got this great workspace. I'm really happy with it, really pleased with it, and I've put rather than having trailing leads all over, I've got a floor box underneath. Underneath there, there's a floor box with sockets in, stuff like that. And what I've discovered is this last week that things have got a habit of pinging into the corner of the floor box within millimeters of falling into the void between the joists, So I've got to do something about that. Even if it's only putting an apron on and making sure I'm clipping it on the underneath of the bench. Or something like that,
Aprons are good for catching things, aren't they? But after a while, you get to realize which part of the room the part's landed in because of what it's hit. You know, if it hits the window, it's quite easy to find. And also, if it hits the radiator, that's obvious, isn't it? You know, so
Yeah.
when you land on the cat and the cat runs off, that's the hard bit.
Yeah, Anthony, Richard Mills says that he recommends that the floor covering is grey and deep pile just to make it more fun finding the
Yeah.
Yeah. One day. Yeah. So that was the piece of extra information, news or whatever else that getting incorporated in the instructions as well about that sort of, you know, just make sure it's level. And it's absolutely right, because when I was building this one, you see there's a lot of beams and things in there. There was an element of I don't know as you can see in there or not, that front beam has got a couple of bends in it, partly to get over the front axle, but to get down to playing on the front bogie. So part of the exercise with the loco box was to actually use that to align the beam, to bend the beam so that all the axles were in the right place, you know. And that worked. So there you are. Well, I'm quite pleased with that.
Yeah, nice unexpected consequence of your box. Didn't I do a video for your box as well? Have you got a link to that on your website?
I think so. Yeah, there is. Yeah,
I did a YouTube video.
Was that on your evening with slot? Was it?
No, I didn't. I think I did it. I don't know. I can't remember. It was a while ago now. I remember I was building a Z class, so it's, you know, it's quite a big,
a coupled one. Yeah,
five axles. And I think you made me a special box, didn't you? That was long enough to or adding the slots in the right place.
Oh, it was just a standard 8 coupled box, Nick.
Oh, right, okay.
Yeah.
And it worked really well. It worked really well, you know, because it's sometimes, you know, you spend hours and hours and hours measuring everything to make sure that everything's level and everything's square. And your box did a lot of that for it. I have to point out to everyone that I'm not on a commission for saying this. I just did genuinely find it, you know, a bit of an aid to building chassis.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, I don't if I try and do it loudly, you can. It was quite a revelation when I did this. And all 5 axles are sort of linked on that flexi shaft thing. It was quite a revelation when you put it down. It feels different to a normal loco because every wheel is touching the ground. I know that there would be if a flat was flat and whatever else, but if I just don't say anything for a minute, I don't know as you can hear that each axle is actually going up and going down individually on there. Maybe that didn't come out too well, did it? I mean, I know you wouldn't. I mean, that's the thickness of a cutting board, but you wouldn't have a track that's so uneven. But it demonstrates that, you know, the old flexi shaft thing. If you can, I only did that for the engineering challenge, really. But if you can manage to put one of those together, it's a really interesting exercise to do. Talk about flexi shafts. That's the book. Only a little thin book.
It's quite a venerable old text, that, isn't it?
It is.
What's his name? Sharman, wasn't it?
Mike Sharman. Yeah. 1982. 40 years old. We should celebrate it, shouldn't we? I don't know. Probably, obviously not in print anymore, but you come across them at shows and stuff like that occasionally, don't you?
I've got a couple of messages here. I've got one from Alex who says when he started modeling his wagon, he used a wooden board. And I've got Stephen Smith who says that that's very useful information.
Yeah, well, that's what we're here to try and help. And
We all like a little bit of an aid to modelling, don't we?
I sort of think that you've had a bad day if you haven't learned something, because you can always improve something. Something that goes, oh yeah, of course it does.
Every day is a school day. Can I just we've only got a few minutes left actually of our allotted hour. So perhaps if anybody's got any questions that they'd like to ask Anthony, now would be a good time to ask them. Perhaps
please
get people to unmute themselves maybe and ask you a question.
I'd like to ask about weighting of wooden wagons. I've got some beautifully made wooden wagons by Gordon Falconer, but I have to put loads in them. They're all made of wooden planks and so on, but they're too light compared with the general run. So how do you, what's your weight for a wagon? There were weights given by the Guild. I think 125 grams or something was a general weight. How would you?
It's a really good question. It's a really good question. I don't know. I've never. I know Nigel talked about weight on things this morning. I've always sort of just followed what was there. Does the weight bother you, or they're so light that they derail, or?
That's the problem. Yes, they can derail. You have to have loads in them.
Yeah. I mean, I guess the wooden wagons are probably going to turn out a bit lighter in weight than something like Slater's wagons. But I don't know what you would do with those other than put loads in.
Well, a van, I would normally put a block of wood in it.
Right. Okay.
So that would be enough to.
But the Coopercraft wagons used to have a little. I don't know, now Slaters do them. I don't know if they're still doing that. Used to have a little pouch underneath to put some metal weights in.
Mm-hmm. You could use liquid gravity, but it becomes, which is very heavy. But you would obviously need to hide that under your load.
Yeah, but
it's either or on under the underframe.
Yeah. I mean, it does mean that you can't have empty wagons though, Chris. If it's inside the load. And I suppose we've moved away from sort of solid metal wheels and things like that, haven't we? So all the time we're getting lighter things and lighter weight. I tell you what, I don't know whether you guys do. I'll have a look. Are you likely to join us this afternoon, Martin?
No, okay. Afraid not.
Well, I will, and anyway, if you want to catch the recording or whatever, I will have a look in the Guild manual and see if it sort of talks about axle weights or something like that.
Well, I've just, as it happens, I've just been Googling this, and there's a forum here that says that O-gauge wagons, they recommend 25 grams per axle, which seems a lot lighter than the weight that Martin said was on the O-gauge Guild's manual. And then there's someone else here saying, rule of thumb, the wagon should be 1 gram for every millimetre of length. and he weighs his wagons to about 150 to 180 for a short wagon, and consequently more for a longer one, which seems about what Martin's been saying there, doesn't it? But I suppose ultimately the problem is, where do you put the weight in the wagon? That's the issue. Maybe sometimes, like you say, if you want an empty mineral wagon, then where do you put the weight? I suppose you have to stick it underneath sole bars, don't you?
Yeah, in an empty wagon, it's got to go in the underside and under the underframe.
Well, if it's under the wagon, you can't see it, but it's a shame to
Yeah,
alter the thing at all.
yeah, I totally agree with you.
If I have boxes in the wagon, I put a bit of flat lead on the bottom of each box, so that you can't see it, but it's there, and that gives you a weight.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just that with your brake van, I just wondered how you could have a whole lot of lead men in it, of course.
Or a lead table.
Yeah.
A lead table, even. Or fill the, between the legs with lead or something like that. Yeah. all possible. I'll tell you what I will do. I don't have anything here to weigh it, but I'll have a go at weighing post the horse box and see what that comes out of interest. I mean, there aren't any mouldings on there. The mouldings are like minimal grams, no buffers on it either. But it has got that loud. It has got that etched chassis on it. And these are not, but you could put pear tree wheels in it, which are solid metal wheels.
I was going to say the pear tree wheels are quite heavy in themselves, aren't they? Because
yeah. So different ways of doing it, but as you say, if your wagon chassis is pretty accurate and part of the accurately model, you don't really want to go filling holes in between the sole bars and things, do you?
No.
I tell you what you could do. So what are these wagons? They're made out of wood, Martin.
Totally made out of wood, yeah.
And are they what's the floor of the wagon then that you see from the top?
Well, that's made of wood planking as well.
That's made from wood planking.
Yeah.
Chris Walder's put up, can't you add a false floor, i.e. the existing floor, put your weight in and then put an additional floor in that wouldn't be that noticeable.
Or even get a sheet of lead, on roofing sheet and roll it out flat, and then you can scribe plank onto that.
Yes, you could.
I can do better than that, Chris.
Go on then.
Which is where I was just going to go. Excuse me a second.
I save all the old sheets off the roof.
Yeah, absolutely. I get told off for not throwing things away, so if you can get a thin sheet of lead or a thinner lead sheet down to the weight that you want, we do false floors for. I mean, that's a 3H wagon, really old one, yeah, but sort of freshened up with a wooden insert in it. So we could, I can do your wooden floors to go over the lead, so you won't have to score it and paint it and stuff like that, and it's still a wooden floor that would maintain, the integrity, the appearance of a wooden wagon. So that's a good idea, Chris. Put a false floor in with some lead weight or whatever. I mean, it needn't be. I mean, that is if we're doing a floor for you, it's 0.8 millimeters thick. Okay, our floor is 0.8 millimeters. I guess it needn't be lead. I mean, the lead's going to make it heavy, but you might be able to use something that isn't lead that would add the weight that you need, that's just as thin. What else is heavy and thin? And we all use brass and nickel, silver and stuff like that, but that seems a bit of a waste.
Without being too facetious, uranium's the one of the more dense metals.
I would argue with that.
It says here on the periodic table. I've just looked it up.
Right. I have here, which is useful now and again. And if it helps you to repurpose things you might be throwing away. Jeepers. This is really heavy. I mean, I'm sure it's a piece of steel or something like that, obviously, but this came out of the back of a television table. One of these like with glass shelves and stuff like that. Only you put your telly on top, but this was obviously included in the table to counteract the weight of the tube at the front of the table or something. This was at the back. Yeah, really useful. Bit heavy for a wagon though. Yeah, but useful for holding things down. Right.
I've just put an address on, which is in Swadlincote in Derbyshire, 1mm sheet lead. They might have some cheap old offcuts going in the scrap bin.
Very good.
1mm lead. Okay.
Yeah. I just did it on Google while we were looking.
Yeah.
You get you get a Chinese company come up, and then you get one in Swadlincote.
Derbyshire. Yeah. Oh. Yeah. Good question. Do you have a? I mean, is it a problem with derailing, Martin, or do you just do it now and again?
Yeah, well, it is a problem, I think, where you have a mixed train, where you have heavy vehicles and light vehicles. That can be a problem. It's
okay, yeah, understand.
And you do need to get a weight into I mean, I have got some tankers, and I did try liquid lead in them, but somehow or other it seemed to find a hole and escape. So eventually I got strips of lead that I fed into it to give them weight.
Right. Yeah.
These are the Slater's wagons. Tankers are very light. So, yeah.
True. Of course, it depends. I have a friend, Colchester, who has a layout in the Garton, Ambergate. You might have seen it on the guild information somewhere. Quite old layout, but and he tries to get when we have running days, he tries to get us to take loaded trains that way and take the loads out at the end, so unloaded trains come back. Yeah. So, yeah, you need heavy wagons for that, don't you? Well, weighted wagons.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Good.
Used to model in 009, and we had a few modelers with our first 3D printed bodies, put liquid lead in and then pack it in and use PVA. And the PVA expands and blows the model apart. So be careful what glue you use to stick liquid lead together with.
Yeah. There was somebody, I can't remember who now, had a problem with loco boilers like that, didn't they?
Yeah.
I can't remember who now. But I would have thought when PVA had gone off, it had gone off. But maybe there's different formulations.
It's water soluble, isn't it? So
yeah. So if it gets dampened, then it'll take water in, won't it? Yeah. Oh well.
Great.
Okay.
Great. Well, we've gone past our allotted hour now. So if anybody else has a question, now's your chance. Anybody?
Just good luck to any manufacturing.
Great. Okay. Well,
Right.
thanks very much,
everybody for
Anthony. I think you're doing another session, aren't you, this afternoon?
Yeah.
For those that would like to see a little bit more.
Yeah.
So
It'd be quite similar. I might try and put some wheels on this. This hasn't had wheels on yet, so I might try and put some wheels on there. That'd be a risky thing to do, wouldn't it, live?
go for it. What's the worst that can happen?
I've got them. Yeah, yeah. Oh, I didn't check. And I'll tell you what else we'll do as well. Well, when we've got it out of the jig, I'll show you how I do home blocks, which is different.
Very good. Very good.
And crank pins, which I think everybody knows about doing crank pins differently. But
Yeah. Right, we're going to have to go.
Super.
Otherwise, we're going to bump into another meeting. Okay, everybody. Thanks ever so much for coming, and thanks very much, Anthony, for a really, really interesting and informative presentation. And we'll see you this afternoon. Bye, everyone. Bye.
Thank you.